What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and the road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer is now going to take us into Harrisonburg, Virginia. We are back talking about a Group of 5 program and your first team out of the Sun Belt Conference. It's the ever-powerful James Madison Dukes. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate, and I want to thank y'all so much for clicking on this video and for helping to support the channel. If you, yes, you would like to support the channel even further, I greatly appreciate it, but the way you do so, hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, hey, you might as well ring the bell. Turning on notifications will ensure that you, yes, again, you, don't miss an upload during prediction season, especially not one of your favorite team. Now, I do have a sports media degree on the wall, and I am starting my new job in the sports media industry, so if you would like to see all of the cool stuff that I get to do, while still being up to date on what goes on this very YouTube channel, then you can give me a follow at TailgateNate29 on Twitter or Instagram, and please feel free to email me. It's tailgatenate29@gmail.com. I want to thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me or the channel in whatever way you may be doing so. Me and the channel, me or the channel, just any way you interact and support with me, my content. I really appreciate it, and let's talk about Bob Chesney and the James Madison Dukes. Year one under Bob Chesney was a pretty successful one. 8-4, 4-4 in conference. Not quite the standard that James Madison people are used to under Curt Cignetti, but it was a great stepping stone. Now, in year number two, dare I say, James Madison can be one of the best competitors to get in to the college football playoff as the Group of 5 representative. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we are going to go through a roster overview where the offense, right over here to the left, and the defense, well, you guessed it, right over here to the right. And at the end of the video, we are going to go through the James Madison football schedule. I will give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and this video overall is here to tell you what I think about the Dukes in 2025. Down below me, some numbers. Returning production numbers are according to ESPN, and they do factor in transfer portal additions up to a certain percentage, while your recruiting and transfer portal ranks for the class of 2025 are both according to 24/7 Sports. We kick it off over here with Dean Kennedy and the James Madison Duke offense. You do get your starting quarterback from last season coming back. Alonzo Barnett, 2,598 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions a season ago for him. He is going to be coming back. Again, was a very successful first campaign for him as this James Madison starter. And he definitely is going to make his case to start this season, and he is going to have to, because even though Alonzo Barnett does come back, you really could say that there are 3 viable quarterback options in this room, because Camden Coleman comes over from Richmond, where he had 2,031 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. In my opinion, if I were the head coach, I'm obviously not Bob Chesney, and I can't make this decision for him. To me, I think that Camden Coleman would be the 3rd string option, and then it's a battle between Alonzo Barnett and Matthew Sluka, who is going to reunite with Bob Chesney, his old head coach at Holy Cross back in 2023, where he threw for 1,723 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, and back in 2022, 2,491 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. That last stat line I just read, pretty similar to what Alonzo Barnett did last year for James Madison. Completion percentage a little bit lower than what Barnett had last year. But overall, I mean, some pretty similar numbers right there. I think it's going to be Barnett and Sluka that are going to be battling it out for this quarterback position. Matthew Sluka, to me, would be the favorite because he has been, now all of these guys have been, or I should say both of those guys, Barnett and Sluka, have been in the Bob Chesney system. Sluka has been in it for longer, and it's definitely up to you to decide who saw the better production and who was the better overall player out of the two, whether that be Barnett, whether be Sluka. That's definitely up to your interpretation. However, I think it is those two guys to battle it out for the starting quarterback job. Who wins it is up to my best judgment. I think either of them would serve as fine starters, and if one of them isn't cutting it throughout a part of the season, well, then I have a feeling that Bob Chesney would switch to the other guy. I think he's got 2, even 3 quarterbacks here that I think you could have a lot of faith in putting the football in their hands for the 2025 season. Let's move on to what surrounds the quarterback room. Running back room, great. Let's talk about it. It remains intact from last season. George Pettaway, a sophomore running back last year, 980 yards and 5 touchdowns, on 6 yards per carry. Yep, you bet he is coming back. You also do get a really big piece in Wayne Knight that returns 449 yards and a touchdowns on 5.8 yards per carry. But he also was a viable receiving option with 137 yards and a pair of touchdowns receiving last season. So, uh, again, you are going to get Penaway to lead this rushing room, but with Knight and some of the other pieces that you're going to have returning here, Ayo Adai, who should play a much bigger role in this room this year than he did last year, Joby Mallory, and even a transfer in Jordan Fuller, who is coming over from Chesney's old stomping grounds in Holy Cross. So I like this running back a lot. You probably at the end of the day can go 4 or 5 deep in this running room. And sure, while you might lose some things once you get past George Petway, you still have some viable rushers that sit behind him. However, this is where some of the losses come into play because your entire pass catching room, at least your entire two deep, maybe even your entire deep, most of your 3 deep is all brand new. You lose everybody out of this wide receiver room last year. Allison, yep, leading receiver is gone. Yamir Knight, yep, he is going to be leaving too. Your top tight end from last season, Taylor Thompson, yep, you're going to be losing him as well. Cam Ross, gone. Now, Petway was the team's 5th leading receiver. We've already mentioned Knight, but your top 4 leading receivers from a season ago, gone. They are no longer with this program. However, when you take a look at what does enter in, you do get in really many good FCS transfers. And while I'm not going to go through a whole bunch of stats here, I am just going to list off some names and you can decide for yourself. They all posted really good production in their, I should say, at their FCS counterparts a season ago. Isaiah Alston, Nick DeGennaro, Jalen Sanchez, that's your projected starters according to Landon Ellis, Zaron Collins, and a freshman wide receiver in Michael Scott that's going to enter this room. Chase Miller, Braden Wislowski, and a lone returner in Dylan Smith. Those are your 9 wide receivers that make up this 3 deep. And in your tight end room, well, Logan Kyle is going to be coming back, while Lakata Dupree is going to transfer over in here from Charlotte. He, I believe, is switching from the defensive side of the ball to play some tight end for James Madison this season. And we'll see how well, again, that works out for him. So when I take a look at this wide receiver room, it really is a mystery on how people are going to fit in and who fits where and what the production overall is going to look like. However, this is a wide receiver room that I have a lot of good confidence in. I think Bob Chesney is a good head coach. I think he's going to put together a really good unit here. And no matter who the starting quarterback is, I think they're going to end up having a pretty solid group of pass catchers to be able to throw to. Now, you talk about this offensive line. Big loss here. Cole Potts out of eligibility. However, the guy that you saw on the thumbnail screen might very well be the only offensive lineman you see. He is that important to this team. Pat McMurdy is going to lead this offensive line group from the right tackle position. You get a transfer center in Zach Greenberg, who I think will fit in well. It's a unit that should and needs to see a step up in play from what it did last season. 34 sacks a season ago. That cannot happen for this offensive line this year, especially if James Madison wants to be a college football playoff contender. That offensive line has got to take a step forward in the right direction this season. You move on over to the defensive side, and Colin Hitchler is going to be your defensive coordinator this season. And the defense last year, just simply spectacular. It really was spectacular. Now, duplicating it will be difficult, but I do think it is something that this James Madison team can do. To give you an idea of how spectacular, it allowed under 325 yards per game. That's pretty good. 206 yards through the air, 115 yards on the ground. It really overall was quite the impressive defense to be able to watch. You take a look at what it did as far as the aggressiveness factors, the game-changing momentum plays that I've talked about so often, especially as of late. 41 sacks, 29 turnovers. It was simply a spectacular unit. Duplicating it's going to be difficult because you lose a lot of talent. However, it is doable with the coaching and a lot of the talent they still have here. However, some of those big losses are 2 sack machines that are going to be leaving this team. Your sack leader in Eric O'Neill. He is gone after 52 tackles and 13 sacks last year. What's more is your 3rd leading tackler 68 tackles, and second sack leader with 9 sacks. And Kahari Mans is going to be gone off of this team as well. Others in the front seven are gone, such as linebacker Jacob Dobbs, who was your second leading tackler with 70 tackles and 3 sacks after posting 122 tackles and 5 sacks a season prior to that. So you lose a ton of really high level production off of this defensive front seven. That's defensive lines and linebacking units. However, when you take a look at what this team is still made of, your first 2 levels are going to see a lot of transfers pair with some good returning pieces, such as a linebacker in Trent Hendrick. That was a good piece for this team last year. Top 5 tackler at 54 tackles and 3 sacks. So Trent Hendrick, pretty darn good piece. You do have some other big-time returners. Emmanuel Bush is going to be coming back on the defensive line. He is going to strengthen that interior. However, again, a lot of transfers to enter these respective rooms. Xavier Holmes and Aiden Gobira, I probably pronounced that last name horribly, are both transfers coming into this program. Holmes over from Maine and Gobira over from Notre Dame, as well as most of your 2 deep results in transfers from, again, the portal. Trent Hendrick is going to be paired with Gannon Weathersby as far as the Mike and Will linebacker position goes. But sitting behind them are some transfers as well. Jalen Studio and JT Kwame Yao are both transfers coming in. Studio is over from Kent State, where he had 38 tackles last year. And then Kwame Yao is over from a school called Shepherd. So those are both pretty nice pieces that transfer in. And even with all you do lose, I trust Bob Chesney again to build out of the transfer portal. And he brought in some really solid pieces, I think so. Among all that the secondary loses, your leading tackler, Jacob Thomas, is a massive return to play that short safety position for you. 73 tackles, half a sack, 3 interceptions a season ago, which was second on the team. You do get some other pretty nice pieces returning. Now, one piece that you do lose was your interception leader in Terrence Spence with 5 interceptions, 38 tackles a season ago. He is going to be a pretty significant loss. He also did have a pick 6 in which this defense had 4 of them a season ago. Yes, 4 pick 6s. 4 pick 6s as a defense last season, which again was insane. You do still get many good transfers that do enter the secondary room. Mekhi Rogers is over from St. Francis. Curtis Harris Lopez is going to be transferring in, as well as Chance Harley, who's over from Maryland. 16 tackles, and I believe a pass defended or 2 for the Terrapins last season. What's more, let's give some love to the kicker special teams unit. Like a lot of this defensive side, going to be revamped with some new starters, and that's your special teams report because kickers are people too. When I look at this defense, I think it's built on a very, very good foundation, and no matter the talent that is here with this team, even with all that you lose, especially those 2 sack leaders up front, I think you do really well out of the transfer portal. Now, I do think a lot of these names going to be fairly unknown to a lot of the FBS followers, but when you do your research and you get in to looking at what these guys were at the FCS level, they were machines. They were absolutely awesome, and they were really, really big pieces for the most part for the programs that they did play for. You can even go back and say that about the offensive side of the ball, specifically within that wide receiving unit. So I really like the foundation that James Madison is built upon. I really like a lot of the talent that they have, and I think they're going to be one of the more competitive teams in the Group of 5 realm this season. Now, before we dive on into the Duke football schedule, which you see right over here, there are some numbers right down below me, courtesy of FanDuel, that I would like to turn your attention to. No, not me telling you to go place your money, but they are odds that are current as of recording this video, and as always, are subject to change, as it usually goes with the odds market. When you take a look at the numbers down here, again, with Group of 5 teams, we do not look at their odds to win the national championship. We know it's going to take a lot. We simply look at their odds to get into the college football playoff, and James Madison has got one of the better numbers that you're going to see at plus 1,300. Again, that is one of the better numbers you will see in terms of what teams are favored to go into the college football playoff as the Group of 5 representative. But at plus 310 to win the conference, they are the favorite to go win the Sun Belt with that win total at 8.5, which, hey, maybe some Duke fans feel like is underselling this team a little bit. They will be able to get off with a nice win when you go play Weber State. That's just going to be an easy win for James Madison, and I don't think they're going to have much trouble there. Moving on. on the road against Louisville. However, this is a big time test. Oh boy, this is a big time test. And if James Madison is going to try to prove to the college football world that they are a group of 5 contender, which it's not like they haven't proven that before. Remember when Curt Cignetti was still there, James Madison first joining the FBS was a really, really good side. But this is a game against Louisville. You go in on the road and you make it competitive, let alone win the game. All eyes are going to be right back on to James Madison as a very, very fearful team, and a team that absolutely can challenge Boise State to go into the college football playoff as the G5 representative. I do not think that's going to happen. I think Louisville gets the better of James Madison. I do think that passing attack going to be a little bit too much with all James Madison lost in the secondary, because now you're pairing DeCauley Collins with Chris Bell and Colin Lacey, and you have a gunslinger in Miller Moss, not to mention if they can defend the pass, defending the run also going to be pretty difficult as well. And it's a defense that I think can compete with most other teams across the country as well in Louisville. So I do really like this Louisville team. I think they are being underrated by some people out there. And I think they're out to prove some people wrong this season. Plus, I think it's just a tough matchup for James Madison to go on the road, be able to get that one done. It's a really, really tough ask. But if James Madison can make it competitive, I think they're going to put themselves in the talking point conversation, if they're not already there with Boise State, who just dominated the G5 scene last year. And in some people's mind, until proven otherwise, that's what they're going to believe. However, James Madison does play another team in Liberty that can also be one of those teams to vie in the running for a group of 5 representation spot, or I should say the group of 5 representation spot in the college football playoff. Liberty is going to be another really good side. However, without Caden Salter, they're probably going to take a downgrade at the quarterback position, even though Salter was not super productive for the team last year. Liberty does also lose Quentin Cooley and some really good defensive pieces, including TJ Bush at the edge, which I made a mistake in that video, was not aware of his transfer. He has since transferred out of the program. I have him as a returner. He is not returning. He is transferred and gone. I think James Madison is going to go on the road and get the better of this Liberty team. I like the way James Madison matches up. Again, I think no matter who you go with at the quarterback position, I do really like what James Madison has got as far as weapons surrounding. I think a lot of the transfer portal pieces are going to fit in, not to mention you get an extra week to prepare for this game against Liberty that I think goes through some growing pains without Caden Salter at the quarterback position, without Quentin Cooley to rely on in the running back position. And don't get me wrong, I think Ethan Vasco, who I think is going to start, is a good player, and I like what they have in the running back room. I just don't think it's as talented as it was last year, and I think James Madison is going to be the real deal this upcoming season. So that, to me, is a win for the Dukes, and then you dive on into conference play. Boy, is this one against Georgia Southern going to be interesting, isn't it? James Madison wants revenge so bad for what the Georgia Southern has done to this program over the past couple of years. Now JC French, that quarterback, is coming back. You still have to try to defend him, as well as OJ Arnold, and potentially an improved wide receiver room with Camden Brown, Dylan Gary, and Brian Green entering from the transfer portal to pair with some really nice returning pieces already. An offensive line that's loaded with experience, and a defense that seemingly gets stronger through the transfer portal too. This is the Georgia Southern team that's also going to be one of the better units in the Sun Belt Conference. But I think James Madison is better. And even when you look at it, they get Georgia Southern at home. If it was a road game, I'll be honest with you right now, I would be picking the Eagles to win that contest. But because it is a home game, and with everything James Madison adds through the portal that I like a lot, I think they're going to be able to get this one done, and I think they get that win. I think Clay Helton has got himself a really good side there out of Statesboro that, again, can be one of the better sides in the Sun Belt Conference. I just think James Madison is better. I think their quarterback play is better. I think their skill positions are better. I think their defense is going to be better. Everything's better. No reason for me to not pick James Madison at home against Georgia Southern. should be able to beat Georgia State on the road. I don't know that they're going to be that competitive of a piece in the Sun Belt Conference this year. But then James Madison, you get the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns in the team last year that made the Sun Belt Conference championship game. Now you're going to get Walker Howard to play quarterback for you. He is an Ole Miss former LSU transfer that a lot of people thought, hey, this guy's experienced enough to go play football at the Power 4 level. Just didn't end up working out for him. He has come back to, I believe, the state that he's from. Yes, again, he originally committed to LSU out of Lafayette. Again, that's where the Raging Cajuns are based out of. So it's like a new homecoming there for Walker Howard, and I like a lot of the weapons that surround him. However, again, much like the case with Georgia Southern, I just don't like it as much as James Madison. I think the wide receiver room is going to be better. I think the defense is going to be better, even though you have a lot of experienced pieces, especially in the defensive front seven with this Raging Cajun team. And don't get me wrong, this is a Louisiana side that absolutely could make a run back to the Sun Belt Championship game. In fact, they might be some people's favorite to do so out of that division. Sun Belt still has divisions. I know, just go with it. This is a Louisiana team, again, that I think can compete with James Madison and I think can give them a fight. But you notice what, again, the two Sun Belt teams so far that I said, hey, they can compete with. James Madison gets them both at home. That is huge. Old Dominion, they've been known to put up some fights in the past, but I also think this is a win for James Madison as well. Old Dominion's going to be losing some really good pieces through the transfer portal, and they're going to be having to try to replace some pieces. I believe new quarterback this season. However, you did get some nice pieces in through the wide receiver room. I'm just not seeing it, at least up to the level they need to be at, in my opinion, with Old Dominion to be able to beat James Madison. So that's a win for the Dukes. And then comes this road game against Texas State. I think there's going to be a game in conference play that James Madison drops this season, and I do think it's going to be this one against Texas State. Now, you do have a bye week, which is pretty typical before you play in one of these really random midweek games. This one happens to be on a Tuesday. Yeah, I know, believe it, a Tuesday on the road against Texas State. And look, Texas State is losing a lot, right? They are losing a ton of production from last year, most notably through the portal. Ismail Mahdi is no longer going to be that starting running back, and he was a stud with the Bobcat program. However, Giovanni McCoy is coming in after it not working out at Oregon State, hopefully getting back to his Idaho playing days with the Texas State Bobcats. I think that's a very good fit at the quarterback position. Lincoln Pear, I think, is still a really good running back, and I absolutely love what they did through the transfer portal, getting guys like Maven Anderson, Tyron Smith, who I think is a home run hit in that transfer portal room. And defensively, I think he did well in the transfer portal as well. Texas State is also a team that I think is really well coached by G.J. Kinney, and I really, really have liked this Texas State team over the past couple of seasons. Didn't quite work out as well as I thought it would last year, but because of the short week, because of the road game environment, I do think that James Madison gets tripped up here, and I think Texas State is going to be able to win that game. James Madison is the more talented team, I do believe that. But I think Texas State's got a lot of good pieces that can give the Duke some trouble, as well as this being a short week, even with the bye week, a road game scenario. I think Texas State is able to get them, and they upset James Madison there on the road. However, I do think James Madison wins out from here. Marshall, oh boy, where do I even start with Marshall? They're just trying to replace absolutely everything. They are going to have a new quarterback, new running back, new wide receiver unit, some new pieces offensively, defensively, that I just don't know. It is all going to work in favor of new head coach Tony Gibson as much as it did last season when they made the Sun Belt Conference Championship game. Versus App State, you lose Joey Aguilar, you lose some other really important pieces that made your team pretty solid last year. And even with that, App State did miss out on a bowl game. I know they had the game canceled because of the unfortunate natural disasters that happened last year. And look, AJ Swan transfers in that quarterback. You still have Kanye Roberts, some good defensive pieces. I get it. I just don't think they're up to the level of James Madison. Washington State can compete with this James Madison team, absolutely. I think this is a Washington State team that has got a lot of good pieces here, especially if Zevi Eckhouse is going to be the quarterback a lot of people think he can be, and that he showed that he can be over with the Bryant Bulldogs. I just do think James Madison, again, is better, and they get him at home, much like they get App State at home, and then on the road against Coastal Carolina, again, losing Ethan Vasco, as well as a couple other really good, vital pieces. Running back is going to be new. Some wide receiver pieces are new. Defensively in that secondary, I don't think they stand up with all the transfers they bring in to what the passing attack for James Madison can be this year. So overall, James Madison 10-2 with that one slip up in conference play. However, James Madison does have some tough road games. Again, Texas State, I don't think you can overlook it. Don't overlook Marshall either. Louisville, I think, is, again, probably the maybe one out of two games where they're going to be underdogs on the road at Liberty. Watch out for the Flames again this year. But they get a lot of their important Sun Belt Conference games at home. Georgia Southern, App State. You can even count that Washington State game there as well. Louisiana, they are all at home. I think they get tripped up somewhere, but if you want me to tab a competitor that is second to Boise State, I think this team is very, very close to that mark. They might be a little bit behind Navy, but I overall love what James Madison has got this year, and they will be one of the best group of 5 sides in the nation this year. While I rambled on for a bit. Thank you so much for sticking with me, and let me know your thoughts about the Dukes in the comment section below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.